Yo, what's going on everyone? FreakyDude99 here, and I bring you my solo legendary Titan build. This is the build I used to complete the entire campaign on legendary difficulty solo for Lightfall. It was quite the rough time, but this build did it, and honestly, out of all the builds out there, this probably had the easiest time. There's a couple fights that you'll probably have some trouble with, but after enough time and patience, you can solo the legendary campaign all you want. So let's just jump right into it, that way you can get your gear. Starting off with this subclass, we're using Hammer of Soul for that extra range damage that our super can apply. It's very nice to have. We're using Rally Barricade for the lowest amount of cooldown for Loreley's to go off. We're using Throwing Hammers because it's just better. We're using Thermite Grenade, but you can use Healing Grenade or even Solar Grenade if you want. If you are advanced far enough in the artifact, you can go Firebolt Grenade as it has some additional functionality. For the first aspect, we're using Roaring Flames. Every solar ability final blow will increase our solar ability's damage. Roaring Flames is just wonderful to have, especially when Throwing Hammer gets stacked up to 3 times. It'll clear out a lot of yellow bars that you'll have trouble with in the campaign. And then Soul Invictus, which is really nice for that heal that it provides us. There's so much damage that is getting thrown at you in the campaign, and sometimes there's not a place you can hide, so Soul Invictus is definitely a champion here. For fragments, we're using Ember of Singeing, so our class ability recharges faster when we're scorched targets. This ensures that Loreley stays up as much as possible. We're using Ember of Empyrean, so any solar weapon or ability final blows increase the duration of restoration or radiant. Now this is very nice, as when Loreley's is first used, it's gonna apply restoration to us, but we need to keep that restoration going as long as possible until our class ability regenerates. We're using Ember of Torches, so whenever we hit someone with our throwing hammer, we get an increase to weapon damage from Radiant. And we're using Ember of Ashes, so we just apply more Scorch stacks from weapons like Incandescent, Soul Invictus, and our grenades. Now for the weapons, we're using Witherhoard as our special for the amazing amounts of steady damage it can apply to bosses and tormentors, as well as for the add clear potential that it has. Witherhoard is really a king in the legendary campaign. As well as we're using Cal's Mini Tool as our incandescent weapon, but you can use any type of incandescent weapon you want as long as you're applying Scorch stacks. And then for your heavy weapon, you can really use anything you want as long as you are doing good amounts of damage. I used a Wendigo for here and there, but I also used Cry Mutiny a lot just because the incandescent and the amount of explosions and damage you can get off. There's a lot of adds in the legendary campaign, so having a weapon like this where you can fire off one shot and clear out a room is very nice to have. Now starting off with the Armour and Mods. Now a lot of you are coming into the new system, so here's a build that works wonderfully for taking down the campaign. For the helmet, we're using Kinetic Siphon, so our Witherhoard kills generate orbs of power. We got Heavy Ammo Finder, so we find more heavy ammo drops for our weapons. And then Harmonic Siphon, so our solar weapon final blows spawn orbs of power as well. For our stats, we're focusing Resilience and Discipline. We don't need to worry about strength because we're using throwing hammers, and recovery is kind of taken care of with Loreley's and our hammer as well. For the gauntlets, we're using double heavy-handed, so every time we get a throwing hammer kill, we're spawning 2 orbs of power. As well as we're using impact induction, so whenever we cause damage with our throwing hammer, our grenade cooldown is reduced. And then I have Artifice Armor, so I have a Resilience and a Discipline mod. For the chest piece, I have melee damage resist, as a lot of times I find I'm up close, especially with tormentors, so having this on makes sure you don't get one shot. I also have Charged Up, which increases the maximum number of stacks of armor charge we can carry by 1. And I have Emergency Reinforcement, so whenever our shield is broken, not only will Loreley's pop and give us restoration, but we'll also get damage resist depending on the amount of orbs of power we have. And then I have a Discipline mod. For the legs, I have double solar weapon surge, so whenever we're using Callus mini tool or our incandescent weapon, we're getting a big bump to our damage. If we're using a solar heavy weapon as well, that gets a damage boost. As well as we're using stacks on stacks, so anytime we're picking up an orb of power, we're getting 2 armor charges instead of 1. And finally, for the class item, we're using distribution, so anytime we pop our barricade, it's giving energy to all of our abilities. We're using utility kickstart, so our barricade and Lorelei, whenever it is used, depending on our armor charge, will get refunded energy back into our class ability. This is very nice for keeping Lorelei's up as much as possible. And then we're using time dilation, so our solar weapon surge lasts much longer and doesn't decay as fast. Now, this is a really fun build, and it's a classic Solar Titan build updated to use the new mods and the new system. It works just as well, and if not better than it did in the previous system, and I had a lot of fun tearing through the legendary campaign on solo. Now, if you think of any changes that I can make to this build, drop them in the comments, because hey, if a build can be improved, I love hearing about it. Other than that, this has been FreakyDude99. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace out.